Maria Dawson pressed her dead son's shirt against her face and screamed into the frozen Dakota wind. 3 weeks since the fire took everything. 3 weeks of walking, begging, starving. Now she stood at the edge of Whistling Creek, her body shaking, her heart emptied of everything but one desperate prayer. Let me die warm. She didn't know that across this frozen town, a man named Colton Hayes was searching for something she thought she'd lost forever, a reason to keep breathing. If you want to follow Maria's journey from ashes to hope, subscribe to our channel and stay until the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. The wind hit Maria's face like a punishment she'd learned to accept. She stepped off the freight wagon, her boots cracking through ice that had formed overnight on the dirt road. Whistling Creek wasn't much to look at. A few wooden buildings hunched against the cold smoke, rising thin from chimneys that seemed too tired to try harder. "End of the line, ma'am," the wagon driver said. He didn't look at her. Nobody looked at widows for long. "Thank you." Maria's voice came out hoarse. She hadn't spoken in 2 days. The driver clicked his tongue and the wagon rolled away, leaving her standing alone with a suitcase that held nothing but ghosts. She pressed her hand against her chest, where her son's shirt lay folded beneath her dress. Thomas, 4 years old, gone in smoke and screaming while she clawed at a burning door that wouldn't open. Her husband Daniel had run back inside for the boy. Neither of them came out. Maria closed her eyes and forced her legs to move. One step, another. The cold was eating through her thin coat, but she'd stopped feeling it days ago. Hunger did that, made everything distant, like watching your own body from somewhere far away. The general store had a crooked sign that read, "Peterson's Goods." Maria pushed the door open. A thin man with round glasses looked up from stacking flour sacks. His face did something complicated when he saw her pity fighting with wariness. "Help you, ma'am?" "I'm looking for work." Maria kept her voice steady. "Anything. Cleaning, cooking, washing. I don't need much pay, just enough for food and somewhere to sleep." The man's eyes dropped. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Work's scarce these days, ma'am. Real scarce." "I'm not afraid of hard labor, sir." "It ain't about that." He glanced toward the window like he expected someone to be watching. "Things are complicated in this town right now. Folks ain't hiring strangers." "I'm sorry." Maria nodded slowly. She'd heard those words in 4 towns already. "Sorry, can't help. Good luck elsewhere." "I understand. Thank you for your time." She stepped back outside. The cold wrapped around her like a fist. Across the street, the saloon doors swung open. A group of men spilled out laughing at something she couldn't hear. One of them spotted her and elbowed his friend. They stared. Maria pulled her shawl tighter and walked. The boarding house had a "no vacancy" sign before she even reached the door. The church was locked. The doctor's office had curtains drawn tight. By noon, her legs were trembling. She found an alley between the blacksmith's shop and a boarded-up building, out of the wind at least. She sat down on a crate and pressed her palms against her eyes. "Don't cry. Don't you dare cry. Crying takes energy you don't have. You gonna freeze there, you know." Maria's head snapped up. A woman stood at the mouth of the alley, heavy-set, gray-haired, wearing a practical wool dress, and an expression that looked like it had seen everything twice. "I ain't meaning to be cruel," the woman continued. "Just stating facts. Temperature's dropping. You stay out here tonight, they'll find you stiff by morning." "I'm aware." Maria's voice cracked. The woman studied her. "You eat today?" Maria didn't answer. That was answer enough. The woman sighed heavily. "Come on then. My name's Martha Jennings. I cook for the Hayes Ranch. Can't promise you nothing permanent, but I can get you warm and fed before you drop dead in my town." Maria stood slowly. Her pride screamed at her to refuse. Her body screamed louder. "Why?" she asked. Martha's face softened just slightly. "Because I buried 3 children to scarlet fever, And I remember what it felt like to have nothing left. You got that look, girl. The one that says you're running from a grave. Maria's breath caught. Come on, Martha said again. Wagons this way. The ranch appeared through the falling snow like something from a dream Maria had stopped believing in. Fences stretched wide across frozen pastures. Cattle huddled in groups, their breath rising in clouds. A large house sat at the center, solid and warm smoke pouring thick from its chimney. Hayes Ridge, Martha said. Biggest spread in 3 counties. Colton Hayes built it with his own 2 hands after the war. Man works harder than any 10 people I know. Is he the one I should thank for this kindness? Martha let out a sound that might have been a laugh. Colton ain't kind, girl. He's practical. Different thing entirely. He needs workers who don't cause trouble, and I need help in that kitchen. Works out. The wagon stopped near the main house. Maria climbed down carefully, her frozen fingers barely gripping the wooden rails. The door opened. A man stood in the frame, and something in Maria's chest went tight. He was tall, broad-shouldered in a way that spoke of labor, not vanity. His face looked carved from the same stone as the land, all hard angles and weather-beaten lines. Dark blue eyes met hers across the frozen yard, and Maria felt herself being measured, weighed, assessed like livestock at market. Martha. His voice was low, rough. Who's this? Found her freezing in town. Figured you'd rather I bring her here than have a dead stranger on Whistling Creek's conscience. The man Colton stepped down from the porch. His boots crunched through snow as he approached. Maria lifted her chin. Whatever he saw, she wouldn't cower from it. You got a name, he asked. Maria Dawson. Where's your husband, Mrs. Dawson? The words cut exactly where they were meant to. Dead. 3 weeks now. Something flickered in those blue eyes. Children. Maria's throat closed. She couldn't answer. She couldn't. He's gone too, she whispered. The fire took them both. Colton was silent for a long moment. The wind howled between them. You looking for charity? He finally asked. No, sir. I'm looking for work. Any work you've got. Plenty of women come through here looking for work. Most of them can't handle it. Maria felt her spine stiffen. I've worked every day of my life since I was 12 years old. I kept a household running managed accounts, raised a child, and buried my family with my own hands. I reckon I can handle whatever you throw at me, Mr. Hayes. The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile. Reckon you might at that. Colton, Martha said carefully. She needs food and rest. We can figure out the particulars later. No. Maria stepped forward. I want to know now. What work is there? What would I be doing? I won't take shelter without earning it. Colton studied her for another long moment. Then he turned to Martha. Get her fed and warmed up. We'll talk business after. He walked away toward the barn, without looking back. Maria watched him go, her heart pounding for reasons she didn't understand. The kitchen was warm in a way Maria had forgotten warmth could feel. Martha set a bowl of stew in front of her, thick with meat and vegetables, steam rising like a prayer answered. Maria's hands shook as she lifted the spoon. Slow down, girl. Eat too fast after starving, and you'll just bring it all back up. Maria forced herself to take small bites. Each one felt like swallowing hope. How long since you ate? Martha asked, settling into a chair across the table. Day before yesterday. Woman in Ridgemont gave me half a biscuit. Martha's face hardened. Damn this territory. Acts like charity's a sin. I don't blame them. Times are hard for everyone. Times being hard don't excuse being cruel. Martha refilled Maria's cup with hot tea. Now, I'm going to tell you something about this place, and you're going to listen careful. Colton Hayes is a good man, but he ain't an easy one. He lost his wife 6 years ago. She died in childbirth, and the baby went with her. Maria's hands stilled. Something broke in him that day. Martha continued quietly. He don't let people close no more. Works himself near to death, keeps everyone at arm's length. But he's fair. He treats his people right. You do your job, he won't give you trouble. Why are you telling me this? Martha's eyes met hers. Because you got that same broken look he does. And I've learned that broken people either heal each other or cut each other deeper. I'm hoping for the first. Before Maria could respond, the back door opened. Colton stepped in, shaking snow from his coat. He hung his hat on a peg and moved toward the fire without looking at either woman. Martha, we need to talk about the supply run next week. Jenkins says the pass might close if this weather holds. I'll make a list tonight. Colton nodded. Then his gaze shifted to Maria. You finished eating? Yes, sir. Good. Walk with me. Maria stood. Her legs were steadier now, warmth spreading through her body. She followed him out onto the porch. The night had fallen hard and fast, stars emerging sharp against a black sky. The cold was brutal, but Colton didn't seem to notice. I'm gonna ask you something, he said, and I want an honest answer. You got anywhere else to go? No. Family. None living. Friends who might take you in? Maria almost laughed. Mr. Hayes, I came to this territory because I heard it was a place where people could start over. I've got nothing, no one. Just what's in that suitcase and the clothes I'm wearing. Colton turned to face her fully. In the darkness, his features were all shadow and hard lines. Then I've got a proposition for you. Maria's heart began to pound again. I need someone, Colton said slowly. Not for cooking or cleaning, Martha handles that. Not for ranch work, I've got hands for that. I need... He stopped. His jaw tightened like the words physically hurt. I need an heir, a child to leave this ranch to, and I need a wife to give me one. The world tilted under Maria's feet. You're asking me to... I'm asking you to marry me, in name and in purpose. You'd have a home, food, safety, everything I can provide. In exchange, you'd give me a child. Maria stared at him. You don't know anything about me. I know you survived something that should have killed you. I know you didn't beg, didn't cry, didn't ask for pity. I know you looked me in the eye and demanded to earn your keep instead of accepting charity. His voice dropped. I know what it looks like when someone's carrying grief too heavy to name. This is madness. Maybe. Colton didn't blink. But I'm running out of time. The railroad company's been pressuring me to sell. Law says if I don't have established family, a wife and heir, they can make a claim on this land when I die. I won't let that happen. This ranch is everything I've built, everything I have left. Maria's mind raced. You could marry anyone. There must be women. Women who want romance, love, things I can't give. His eyes held hers steady. You understand transaction. You understand survival. That's what I'm offering. A fair deal. Nothing more, nothing less. And if I can't, Maria's voice caught. If I can't give you a child, I lost my son. I don't know if I can, then we'll face that when it comes. But I won't throw you out. You'd have a home here regardless. Maria turned away, pressing her hand against her chest. Her son's shirt lay there still cold now against her skin. Why me? She whispered. Colton was quiet for a long moment. Then, because you know what it means to lose everything. And people who've lost everything understand how to hold on to what's left. Maria closed her eyes. The wind cut across the porch carrying the scent of snow and pine. 3 weeks ago, she had wanted to die, had prayed for it some nights, had walked into blizzards, half hoping she wouldn't walk out. Now a stranger was offering her survival wrapped in a contract that stripped love from the equation entirely. I need time to think, she said. You have until morning. Colton's boots sounded against the wood as he moved toward the door. Martha will show you to a room. Whatever you decide, you're welcome to stay the night. The door closed behind him. Maria stood alone in the darkness, the cold biting deep into her bones, and wondered if this was salvation or just another kind of death. She didn't sleep. The room Martha gave her was small but clean, a narrow bed with thick quilts, a wash basin, a window that looked out over the frozen land. Maria sat on the edge of the mattress, her suitcase unopened beside her. Her son's shirt was in her hands. She pressed it to her face and breathed deep, but the smoke smell was fading now. Soon there would be nothing left of him but memory. Thomas, my sweet boy. What would you tell me to do? She could still hear his voice sometimes in that space between waking and sleeping. Mama, look, Mama, come see. He'd been so curious about everything, always running ahead, always reaching for the next wonder. He would have loved the horses here, would have begged to ride them. Maria's tears came silent and hot, dropping onto the worn fabric. Colton Hayes was offering her survival, a roof, food, warmth. All she had to do was give up any hope of love, of tenderness, of being seen as anything other than a means to an end. But hadn't she given up those hopes already? Daniel was gone. Thomas was gone. What was left to protect? Her pride whispered a voice in her head. Your dignity, your right to choose your own path. And another voice quieter. What good is dignity in a frozen grave? Dawn came gray and brutal. Maria washed her face, dressed in her cleanest clothes, and went downstairs. Colton was already in the kitchen, standing by the stove with a cup of coffee in his hands. He turned when she entered. Made your decision? Maria's heart hammered against her ribs. She thought of Thomas, of Daniel, of every door that had closed in her face over 3 long weeks. I have conditions, she said. Colton's eyebrow rose slightly. I won't be treated like livestock. I'll work alongside. You keep accounts, manage the household, whatever needs doing. I'll try to give you a child, but if I fail, I won't be cast out like something broken. I'll have respect, or I'll walk out that door right now and take my chances with the cold. Colton studied her for a long, silent moment. Then he nodded once. Fair terms. Maria let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Then I accept. Colton extended his hand. Not for her to take gently, but for her to shake like a business partner, like an equal. Maria clasped it firmly. His grip was warm and rough with calluses. We'll marry by the end of the week, he said. I'll have the preacher come out. Keep it simple. I don't need fancy. Good, neither do I. He released her hand and turned back to the window. Maria stood there watching his broad back, wondering what kind of life she'd just agreed to. Outside, the snow had begun to fall again, thick and relentless, covering everything in white. The preacher arrived 3 days later, a thin man with kind eyes and a Bible worn soft from years of use. Maria stood in the parlor wearing a simple blue dress that Martha had altered overnight. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. She kept pressing them flat against her skirt, then clasping them together, then pressing them flat again. You don't have to do this, Martha whispered beside her. Say the word, and I'll make up some excuse. Tell him you took sick. I'm not sick. You're shaking like a leaf in a storm. Maria turned to face the older woman. I buried my husband and my child in the same week, Martha. I walked 200 miles with nothing but the clothes on my back. I've been turned away from more doors than I can count. She drew a breath. This isn't fear. This is... I don't know what this is. Martha squeezed her hand. It's hope, girl. And hope is terrifying when you've learned to live without it. The door opened. Colton stepped in, dressed in a clean black coat that looked like it hadn't been worn in years. His dark hair was combed back from his face, and for a moment Maria saw something beneath the hard exterior, a man who'd once known how to want things. Preacher's ready, he said. Maria nodded and walked toward him. They stood side by side before the fireplace. The preacher spoke words Maria had heard once before, years ago, when Daniel had slipped a ring on her finger and promised her forever. Forever had lasted 6 years. Do you, Colton James Hayes, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Maria Catherine Dawson, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Maria's throat tightened. She looked at Colton's profile, the strong jaw, the lines carved by weather and grief, the eyes that gave nothing away. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife. The preacher closed his Bible. You may kiss your bride. Colton turned to her. Maria's heart slammed against her ribs. He leaned in and pressed his lips to her forehead, brief, formal, nothing like a kiss between lovers. When he pulled back, his expression hadn't changed. It's done, he said. Maria nodded. It's done. Martha dabbed at her eyes with her apron. The preacher cleared his throat awkwardly, and just like that, Maria Dawson became Maria Hayes. The wedding dinner was quiet. Martha had prepared a roast with potatoes and fresh bread, more food than Maria had seen in weeks. She ate slowly, tasting nothing. Colton sat across from her, cutting his meat with precise movements. He didn't speak, neither did she. When the meal ended, he pushed back his chair. I've got work in the barn. Don't wait up. He was gone before she could respond. Maria sat alone at the table, listening to the wind howl outside, wondering if this was what the rest of her life would feel like, two strangers sharing space bound by paper and desperation. Give him time. Maria startled. Martha stood in the doorway, drying her hands on a cloth. He ain't been close to anyone since Elizabeth died. He don't know how to do this any more than you do. Elizabeth. That was his wife's name. Sweet girl. Barely 20 when she passed. Martha's voice softened. She was carrying his child. The baby came too early, and neither of them survived. Colton. He was different before. Not warm exactly, but not this closed off. Her death locked something inside him that I ain't sure he can unlock. Maria looked down at the ring on her finger. Simple gold, probably Elizabeth's. She felt like an intruder wearing a dead woman's jewelry. Why did he keep you on? She asked. After she died. Most men would have gotten rid of the reminder. Martha smiled sadly. Because I'm the only one who knew him before, and I think some part of him needs someone to remember who he used to be. That night, Maria lay in the bed she was expected to share with her new husband. She stayed on the far edge, her body tense, listening for footsteps that didn't come. Colton slept in the barn. She knew because she heard him leave before sunrise and saw the hay dust on his coat when he came in for breakfast. They didn't speak of it. Days passed, then weeks. Maria threw herself into work. She reorganized the household accounts, finding errors that had cost the ranch money for months. She mended clothes, helped Martha in the kitchen, learned the names of every ranch hand. The men were wary of her at first. A new wife appearing from nowhere, marrying their boss in a matter of days, she knew how it looked. But Maria didn't flinch from hard labor or honest conversation, and slowly the wariness faded. You're different than I expected, said Jake the foreman one morning, while she was helping inventory feed supplies. Different how? He shrugged his weathered face, thoughtful. Mrs. Hayes, the first one, she was soft, sweet, not built for ranch life. You're built for survival. Maria didn't know if that was a compliment. She decided to take it as one. At night, Colton started coming inside. Not to her bed, never that, but to the armchair by the fire. He'd sit there for hours staring at the flames, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Maria learned to leave him alone during those times. She'd work on mending, or read from the few books on the shelf, and they'd exist in the same room without touching, without speaking. Until the night he broke the silence. You reorganized the accounts. Maria looked up from her sewing. I did. You were being overcharged by the feed supplier. I corrected it. I saw. Colton's eyes stayed on the fire. You saved us nearly $40 this month. That's my job now, isn't it, to help run this place? He was quiet for a moment. Then, I didn't think you'd stay. Maria's needle stilled. Where would I go? Most women would have run by now. The cold, the isolation, He gestured vaguely between them. This. I made a deal, Mr. Hayes. I intend to honor it. Colton. Pardon? He finally looked at her, and something in his eyes had shifted, still guarded but less distant. We're married. You should call me Colton. Maria felt her cheeks warm. Colton. Then you should call me Maria. I already do. In my head. The confession startled them both. Colton looked away quickly, jaw tight, like he'd said more than he meant to. Maria returned to her sewing, but her heart was beating faster. It was a small thing, a tiny crack in the wall between them. But it was something. The first real conflict came a month into the marriage. A man rode onto the property one afternoon, his horse lathered despite the cold. Maria watched from the porch as Colton met him in the yard. She couldn't hear their words, but she saw Colton's posture change shoulders, stiffening hands curling into fists. When the rider left, Colton stood motionless for a long moment. Maria stepped down from the porch. Who was that? Nobody. Colton. He turned. His eyes were darker than she'd ever seen them. Victor Ashford, representative from the Pacific Western Railroad. They want my land. Maria's stomach dropped. Can they take it? Not while I'm alive. But they're patient men. They'll wait for me to die without an heir, then swoop in like vultures. His laugh was bitter. They're already circling. What did he say? Colton's jaw worked. He asked about you. Wanted to know if the marriage was legitimate. If you were capable of producing children. Fury flashed through Maria so fast it stole her breath. He asked what? I told him it wasn't his business. And he smiled, said he'd check back in a year, see how things were progressing. Colton's hands were shaking now. Like your livestock, like we're both just pieces in his game. Maria stepped closer. Without thinking, she placed her hand on his arm. He flinched, but didn't pull away. We'll prove him wrong, she said quietly. Whatever it takes. Colton looked down at her hand on his sleeve. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Or the beginning of trust. You don't have to fight my battles, Maria. Our battles, she corrected. This is my home now, too. The words hung between them, heavier than she'd intended. Colton nodded slowly. Our battles. That night, for the first time, he didn't sleep in the barn. He lay on his side of the bed, rigid as a board, a careful distance between them. Maria stared at the ceiling, her body humming with awareness. Good night, Maria. His voice in the darkness made her heart stutter. Good night, Colton. Neither of them slept well, but they slept under the same roof in the same room, and somehow that felt like progress. Winter deepened its grip on the land. The temperature dropped until even the fire couldn't keep the cold at bay. Maria woke one morning to find frost on the inside of the windows, and Colton already gone. She found him in the barn working on a broken fence rail, his breath fogging in the frigid air. You should be inside, she said. Work needs doing. It can wait until the weather breaks. He didn't look up. Weather might not break for weeks. Cattle don't care about cold. They need feeding. Fences need holding. I stop working. This whole place falls apart. Maria watched his hands, chapped and raw, moving with stubborn determination. You're bleeding. Colton glanced at his knuckles. Blood seeped from cracks in his skin. It's nothing. It's not nothing. You'll get frostbite, lose fingers. Maria grabbed his hands before she could stop herself. Come inside. Now. He stared at her, startled by her fierceness. Please, she added softer. Let me take care of this. Something broke behind his eyes. The rigid control slipped for just a moment, revealing exhaustion so deep it made her chest ache. All right, he said quietly. All right. In the kitchen, Maria heated water and gathered clean cloths. Colton sat at the table watching her move with an expression she couldn't read. Give me your hands. He extended them, palms up. Maria took them gently and began cleaning the cracked, bloody skin. He hissed, but didn't pull away. "You push yourself too hard," she murmured. "Someone has to. You have ranch hands. Let them help. They have their own work." "Colton." Maria looked up. "You're not alone anymore. You don't have to carry everything by yourself." His breath caught. For a moment, his mask fell completely, and she saw the boy he must have been once before: war, before loss, before this land demanded everything from him. "I don't know how to stop," he admitted. "Working. It's the only thing that keeps the thoughts quiet." Maria's hands stilled on his. "What thoughts?" Silence stretched between them. Outside, the wind screamed. "Elizabeth," he finally said. "The baby. What I could have done different, whether any of it mattered." Maria's throat tightened. "I know those thoughts. They visit me every night." "Your son, Thomas." Speaking his name hurt, but she forced it out. "He was 4. He loved horses and couldn't sit still and had his father's laugh." Tears burned behind her eyes. "Some nights I wake up and forget he's gone, just for a second. Then I remember, and it's like losing him all over again." Colton turned, his hands gripping hers now, instead of the other way around. "I'm sorry," he said, "for what you lost, for what brought you here." "I'm sorry for what you lost too." They sat there in the cold kitchen hands, clasped, grief passing between them like a shared language. Maria realized with startling clarity that she was no longer alone in her pain. Neither was he. The shift between them was subtle but undeniable. Colton started coming to meals instead of eating alone in the barn. He asked Maria's opinion on ranch decisions. Sometimes late at night they'd talk carefully at first, then with growing honesty. He told her about the war, about friends he'd lost, about coming home to find his parents dead from fever and the ranch in ruins. She told him about Boston, about Daniel's dreams of going west, about the fire that ended everything. They didn't touch often, but when they did, a hand on a shoulder, fingers brushing while passing dishes, neither of them flinched anymore. One evening, Martha found Maria staring out the window, watching Colton cross the yard. "You've got feelings for him." Maria startled. "I don't." "Don't lie to an old woman. I've got eyes." Martha smiled knowingly. "And he's got feelings for you. He just don't know what to do with them." "Our arrangement isn't about feelings." "Maybe not. But feelings don't care much about arrangements." Martha patted her shoulder. "Be patient with him, girl. He's been frozen a long time. Thawing takes time." That night, Maria dreamed of fire. But this time when she woke screaming, Colton was there sitting up beside her, his hand on her back, his voice low and steady. "It's all right. You're safe. It was just a dream." Maria gasped for air, her body shaking. "Thomas, I couldn't reach him. The door wouldn't." "Shh." Colton pulled her against his chest. Awkwardly, like he'd forgotten how to hold someone. But his arms were strong, and his heartbeat was steady, and Maria clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world made of smoke. "I'm here," he murmured into her hair. "I'm here." She cried against his chest until no tears were left. And when the sobs finally quieted, she realized his hand was stroking her hair gentle and slow. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to. Don't apologize." His voice was rough. "You lost your child. You're allowed to mourn him." Maria pulled back just enough to look at his face. In the dim light, his expression was open in a way she'd never seen. "Did you mourn yours?" she asked quietly. "The baby you lost." Pain flickered across his features. "I tried not to think about it. About what he might have been. Or she." He swallowed hard. "Elizabeth wanted to name her Grace if it was a girl, after her mother." "That's a beautiful name." "I never said it out loud, not once in 6 years." His voice cracked. "I couldn't." Maria lifted her hand, hesitated, then touched his cheek. He leaned into her palm like a man starving for contact. "Maybe you don't have to carry it alone anymore either," she said. Colton closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. The wall between them had crumbled just a little more. "Stay close tonight," he said. "The dreams are easier to fight when you're not alone." Maria lay back down beside him closer than before, not touching, but near enough to feel his warmth. For the first time since the fire, she slept without nightmares. 2 months into the marriage, Victor Ashford returned. Maria was hanging laundry when his horse appeared on the ridge. She watched him approach, her hands tightening on the sheet she was holding. "Mrs. Hayes." He tipped his hat, smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "You're looking well. Married life seems to agree with you." "Mr. Ashford, my husband isn't here." "Oh, I know. I saw him riding out toward the north pasture." His smile widened. "I thought you and I might have a conversation. Woman to woman. Or rather, woman to man of business." Maria's spine stiffened. "I don't believe we have anything to discuss." "Don't we?" He dismounted, stepping closer. "See, I've been asking around about you, Mrs. Hayes. Maria Dawson, widow from back east, lost everything in a fire. Arrived in Whistling Creek with nothing but a suitcase and desperation. My past isn't your concern. It is when it affects my business." His eyes hardened. "I know this marriage is a sham. Colton Hayes needed a wife to secure his claim, and you needed a roof. It's a practical arrangement. I can respect that." Maria said nothing. "Here's what I'm offering." He pulled a folded paper from his coat. $5,000. Sign this document, testify that the marriage isn't consummated, and we'll have it annulled. You walk away rich, Colton loses his claim, and everybody gets what they want. $5,000. More money than Maria had seen in her entire life. Her hand trembled as she reached for the paper. Ashford's smile grew. Then she tore it in half. His smile vanished. "That was a mistake." "No." Maria's voice was steady now, stronger than she'd felt in months. "Coming here was a mistake. Thinking you could buy me was a mistake. My husband and I have a deal, Mr. Ashford, and it's none of your business what happens in our marriage bed. You'll regret this. Maybe, but I'll regret it with a roof over my head and my dignity intact." She stepped closer, and something in her eyes made him step back. "Now get off our land before I get a rifle and make you leave." Ashford stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed cold and sharp. "You're tougher than you look, Mrs. Hayes. But tough doesn't win against money. I'll be back." He mounted his horse and rode away without looking back. Maria stood there, her heart pounding, the torn paper fluttering in the wind. When Colton returned that evening, she told him everything. His face went through a dozen emotions: anger, fear, pride, something else she couldn't name. "He offered you $5,000, Colton said slowly. "And you tore it up." "Yes." "Why?" Maria met his eyes. "Because I made a promise. And because this is my home now. I won't let anyone take it." Colton stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Then he crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Maria froze, then melted. "Thank you," he said against her hair. "For staying. For fighting." "Always," she whispered back. When he pulled away, his hands lingered on her shoulders. His eyes dropped to her lips, then back up. Maria's breath caught, but he stepped back, clearing his throat. There's work in the barn." "Of course." He left quickly, and Maria pressed her hand to her racing heart. Something was changing between them. Something that had nothing to do with deals or heirs or survival. Something that felt dangerously like love. The days after Ashford's visit changed everything. Colton stopped sleeping in the barn altogether. He stayed close to the house, close to Maria, like he was afraid she might vanish if he looked away too long. "You're hovering," Maria said one morning, watching him pace near the kitchen door for the 3rd time in an hour. "I'm not hovering, I'm checking the weather." "You've checked it 6 times. He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. Ashford's not done. Men like him don't take rejection well. He'll come back with something worse. Then we'll handle it. Maria set down her mending. Together, like we handled it before. Colton turned to face her. The worry in his eyes made her chest tight. You should have taken the money, he said quietly. Excuse me. $5,000, Maria. That's more than most people see in a lifetime. You could have started over somewhere warm, somewhere safe. Maria stood. And leave you to fight alone. I've been fighting alone my whole life. I know how. So have I. She crossed the room and stood before him. And I'm tired of it. Aren't you? He didn't answer, but his hand came up almost involuntarily and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Maria's breath caught. I don't understand you, he murmured. You had every reason to leave, every reason to take that money and run. Why didn't you? Because this is the first place that's felt like home since the fire. Her voice cracked. Because you're the first person who's looked at me and seen something other than pity or burden. Because... She stopped herself. The words she wanted to say felt too big, too dangerous. Colton's hand cupped her cheek. Because what? Maria closed her eyes. Because I think I'm starting to feel things I swore I'd never feel again. The silence stretched between them. Then Colton leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. It wasn't like the kiss at their wedding, formal, distant, meaningless. This was soft and searching tasting of coffee and desperation, and something that felt terrifyingly like hope. Maria grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him closer. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. I shouldn't have done that, Colton said roughly. Don't you dare apologize. I'm not apologizing. He pressed his forehead to hers. I don't know how to do this, Maria. I don't know how to want something without being afraid of losing it. Neither do I. She touched his face. But maybe we can figure it out together. That night, for the first time, they didn't sleep on opposite sides of the bed. Maria woke to find Colton's arm around her waist, his breath warm against her neck. She lay there in the darkness, listening to his heartbeat, feeling something inside her begin to heal. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was the possibility of love, and that was more than she'd had in a very long time. The peace lasted 3 days. On the 4th morning, Jake rode in hard and fast, his horse lathered despite the cold. Boss, we got trouble. Colton was out the door before Maria could blink. She followed, her heart already racing. What happened? Jake's face was grim. Someone cut the fence on the north pasture. Lost about 30 head of cattle overnight. Found tracks leading toward Miller's Creek. Colton's jaw went tight. Ashford. Can't prove it. But yeah, that's my thinking. Maria watched her husband's hands curl into fists. The controlled fury in his posture made her realize how much violence he kept locked inside. Gather the men, Colton said. We're going after them. Colton. Maria grabbed his arm. If this is Ashford's doing, he'll be expecting that. It could be a trap. I don't care. I do. She stepped in front of him. You ride out there angry and reckless, you might not come back. Then what happens to this ranch? To me? The question hit him like a slap. His fury flickered, replaced by something more complicated. I can't just let them take what's mine. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to be smart about it. Maria turned to Jake. How many men can we spare? Jake looked between them, clearly surprised to be addressed. 4, maybe 5. Rest are needed for the regular work. Then take 3. Scout the area. Find out where those cattle went and who took them. Don't engage unless you have to. Maria looked at Colton. We need information, not a gunfight. Colton stared at her. For a moment, she thought he'd argue. Then his shoulders dropped slightly. She's right, he told Jake. Take Reynolds and Cooper. Report back before sundown. Jake nodded and rode off. Colton turned to Maria. When did you get so good at strategy? I was married to a banker. I learned how men think when they're after something. She took his hand. We'll get the cattle back, but not at the cost of your life." He squeezed her fingers. "You really are something, Maria Hayes." The name, her new name, sent warmth flooding through her chest. Jake returned at dusk with news that made Colton's face go pale. "Cattle are at the Morrison place. All 30 head penned up neat as you please." "Morrison." Colton's voice was deadly quiet. "Henry Morrison." "Yes, sir." Maria looked between them. "Who's Henry Morrison?" Colton didn't answer. He turned and walked into the house, slamming the door behind him. Maria caught Jake's arm. "Tell me." The foreman hesitated. "Henry Morrison used to work here, 6-7 years ago. He was sweet on Mrs. Hayes, the first one. When she chose Colton, he didn't take it well." Maria's stomach dropped. "He was in love with Elizabeth. Obsessed with her, more like. Colton fired him after he caught Morrison watching her through windows at night. Morrison swore he'd make Colton pay." Jake shook his head. "We thought he'd moved on. Guess we were wrong." Inside the house, Maria found Colton standing by the fireplace, his hands braced against the mantel. "I should have killed him," he said without turning around. "When I caught him that night, I should have put a bullet in his head." "You're not a murderer." "No. I'm a fool who let a snake slither away." He turned. His eyes were wild. "He was there the night Elizabeth died. Did you know that he came to the house drunk out of his mind, screaming about how she should have been his? I threw him out, but the stress. She went into labor that night, 2 months early." Maria felt the blood drain from her face. "You think he caused her death?" "I know he did." Colton's voice broke. "And now he's back working with Ashford, trying to take everything else I have left." Maria crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. He resisted for a moment, then crumpled against her, his body shaking. "I can't lose this place," he whispered. "It's all I have." "You have me." Maria pulled back to look at him. "And we're going to fight. Both of them, Morrison and Ashford. We're going to fight, and we're going to win." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I refuse to let them take my home." Her eyes burned with determination. "I've lost too much already. I won't lose this too." Colton stared at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression. Respect deepening into something fiercer, something that made her pulse quicken. "God help me," he said quietly. "I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hit Maria like a thunderbolt. "Colton, you don't have to say it back." He touched her face. "I know this started as a business arrangement. I know you didn't ask for feelings, but I need you to know that whatever happens, you're not just a contract to me anymore. You haven't been for a while." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't think I'd ever feel this again. After Daniel, after Thomas, I thought that part of me was dead." "Maybe it was just sleeping." He kissed her forehead, waiting for the right moment to wake up. That night, they didn't just share a bed. They shared themselves fears, hopes, the broken pieces they'd both been carrying alone for too long. And when Maria woke the next morning, she knew with absolute certainty that she loved him too. The confrontation with Morrison came sooner than expected. 3 days later, he rode onto Hayes Ridge in broad daylight, bold as brass. Maria was on the porch when she saw him coming. "Colton!" She turned and called into the house. "We have company." By the time Morrison reached the yard, Colton was standing beside her, his hand resting on the rifle propped against the rail. "Get off my land, Morrison." The man laughed. He was thin and mean-looking, with eyes that reminded Maria of a cornered rat. "Your land? That's real funny, Hayes. From what I hear, you might not have it much longer." "I'll have it until the day I die." "That can be arranged." Colton's hand tightened on the rifle. Maria stepped forward. "You're the one who stole our cattle." Morrison's gaze slid to her. Something ugly flickered in his eyes. "So this is the new Mrs. Hayes. Gotta say, Colton, you traded down. Elizabeth was a real beauty. This one looks like she's been through the ringer." "Watch your mouth," Colton growled. "Or what you'll shoot me." Morrison spread his arms. "Go ahead. Give Ashford exactly what he needs, proof that you're an unfit landowner, a violent man who can't control his temper." Maria's mind raced. This was a setup. Morrison wanted Colton to lose control. "We want our cattle back," she said calmly. "Name your price." Morrison looked surprised, then amused. "My price? Darling, the cattle aren't for sale. They're a message. Everything Colton Hayes has can be taken from him. Everything." His eyes traveled over Maria in a way that made her skin crawl. "Including his wife." The next few seconds happened very fast. Colton grabbed the rifle and swung it up. Maria grabbed his arm. Jake appeared from the barn with 2 other hands, all of them armed. "You got about 10 seconds to get off this property," Jake said, "before we help you off, permanent-like." Morrison held up his hand, still smiling. I'm going. Just wanted to deliver the message." He backed toward his horse. "See you soon, Mrs. Hayes. Real soon." He rode away laughing. Colton was shaking with rage. "I should have killed him. Right there I should have. And gone to prison, left me alone." Maria forced him to look at her. "That's what they want. They want you to make a mistake. Don't give them the satisfaction." "He threatened you." "I know." "I won't let him touch you." "I know that too." Maria cupped his face. "But we have to be smart. There's a way to beat them. We just have to find it." Martha appeared in the doorway, her face troubled. "Maria, can I speak with you private-like?" Something in the older woman's tone made Maria's stomach clench. She followed Martha into the kitchen. "What is it?" Martha closed the door. "I didn't want to say nothing until I was sure, but you've been looking peaked lately, tired, and you didn't touch your breakfast this morning." Maria frowned. "I've been under stress. We all have." "That ain't what I'm talking about, girl." Martha's eyes were knowing. "When did you have your last monthly—" The question hit Maria like a bucket of cold water. She tried to think, tried to count back the days, the weeks. With everything happening, the marriage, the conflicts, Ashford, she hadn't been paying attention. Her hand flew to her stomach. I don't... That's what I thought." Martha's face softened. "I've seen it enough times to know the signs. Sick in the mornings, breast tender, everything smelling stronger than usual." Maria's legs went weak. She grabbed the edge of the table. "It's been almost 2 months," she whispered. "Since my last... Oh, God." "Congratulations, honey." Martha smiled. "Seems like you and Colton did more than just share a bed." The room spun around Maria. A child. She might be carrying a child. Joy and terror collided in her chest. She'd wanted this. It was the whole point of the arrangement. But now that it might be real? Thomas. Sweet Thomas, whose laugh she still heard in her dreams. Could she do this again? Could she risk loving another child when she knew how easily they could be taken away? Maria! Martha touched her arm. "You all right?" "I don't know." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I don't know if I can do this." "Do what?" "Be a mother again." The words tore out of her. "What if something happens? What if I lose this one too? I can't survive that again, Martha. I can't." Martha pulled her into a tight embrace. "Listen to me. I lost 3 children. 3. And every time I thought I'd die right along with them. But I didn't. And neither will you. How did you keep going? Because that's what mothers do. We break, and we keep going anyway." Martha pulled back, wiping Maria's tears. "You gonna tell Colton?" Maria thought about him the way he'd looked when he said he was falling in love with her. The hunger in his eyes when he talked about wanting an heir. "Yes," she said. "But not yet. I want to be sure first. The doctor in town can—" "Not yet." Maria's voice was firm. "I need time to understand what I'm feeling, before I give him hope that might be false." Martha nodded slowly. All right, but don't wait too long. Secrets have a way of growing bigger than the people keeping them. 2 weeks passed. The sickness came every morning now, undeniable and exhausting. Maria hid it as best she could, rising before Colton, emptying her stomach in the outhouse before anyone was awake. But her body was changing in ways she couldn't hide forever. Her breasts ached. Her emotions swung wildly from joy to grief to fear and back again. Some days she caught herself touching her belly without meaning to, imagining the life that might be growing there. And every day the guilt of not telling Colton grew heavier. He noticed something was wrong. Of course he did. "You're not eating," he said at supper one evening. Again. "I'm not hungry." "You're never hungry anymore." He set down his fork. "Maria, what's going on?" She couldn't look at him. "Nothing. I'm just tired." "You're lying." The words hung in the air. "I know what lying looks like," Colton continued quietly. "I've done enough of it myself. So whatever you're keeping from me, I'd appreciate the truth." Maria's hands trembled in her lap. She'd planned to wait until she saw the doctor. Planned to be sure. But the weight of the secret was crushing her. "I think—" She forced herself to meet his eyes. "I think I might be pregnant." Colton went completely still. For a long moment, he didn't breathe. Didn't move. Just stared at her, like she'd spoken in a language he didn't understand. Then, "Say that again." "I might be pregnant." Maria's voice shook. "I'm not certain yet. I wanted to wait until—" She didn't finish the sentence. Colton was out of his chair, pulling her to her feet, his hands gripping her shoulders. "How long have you known—" 2 weeks. Martha suspected. 2 weeks. Pain flashed across his face. "You've known for 2 weeks and you didn't tell me Tishul. I was scared." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I lost Thomas Colton. I lost my baby, and I don't know if I can survive losing another one. I needed time to—" He pulled her against his chest so hard it knocked the breath from her lungs. "Maria." His voice was ragged. "Do you have any idea what this means to me? I know. The ranch. The air. The deal. Forget the deal." He pulled back, cupping her face. "Forget the ranch. Forget all of it." His eyes were wet. "This is a child. Our child. Do you understand that?" "Yes." "Then you understand why I'm terrified." Maria stared at him. "You're terrified. More than I've ever been in my life." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I lost Elizabeth and our baby in the same night. I swore I'd never let myself want this again. But then you came, and you—" He broke off. "I can't lose you. Either of you. You won't." "You can't promise that." "No." Maria touched his face. "But I can promise to fight. For this baby. For us. For this family we're building." Colton kissed her, desperate and fierce and full of all the fear and hope neither of them could put into words. When they finally broke apart, he dropped to his knees and pressed his lips to her belly. "Hello," he whispered. "I'm your father, and I swear to you I will do everything in my power to keep you safe." Maria ran her fingers through his hair, tears streaming down her face. For the first time since the fire, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different this time. That night, lying in Colton's arms, Maria felt the fear begin to loosen its grip. "If it's a girl," she said softly, "what would you think of the name Grace?" Colton's breath caught. "Elizabeth's name. For our daughter." "Only if you want—" "Yes." His voice was thick. "I want that more than you know." Maria smiled and pressed closer to him. Outside, the wind howled across the frozen plains. Somewhere out there, Morrison and Ashford were plotting their next move. The fight wasn't over, if anything, it was just beginning. But here in this moment, wrapped in Colton's warmth, Maria allowed herself to hope. For the first time in a very long time, she had something worth fighting for, and she would fight with everything she had. The doctor confirmed what Maria already knew. She sat on the examination table in town, her hands clasped tight in her lap, while old Dr. Whitmore listened to her heartbeat and pressed gentle fingers against her belly. "About 3 months along, I'd say." He straightened up with a kind smile. "Everything feels normal, strong heartbeat on both of you." Maria let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. "You're sure?" "As sure as I can be." He patted her hand. "You're healthy, Mrs. Hayes. Just need to rest more, eat well, and try to avoid stress." She almost laughed. Avoid stress. With Morrison threatening them and Ashford circling like a vulture. "Thank you, doctor." Colton was waiting outside with the wagon, his face tight with worry. When Maria emerged, he jumped down and took her hands. "Well, 3 months." Maria smiled. "The baby's healthy." Something cracked open in Colton's expression. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "Thank God," he whispered. "Thank God." They drove home in comfortable silence, Maria leaning against Colton's shoulder. For a few precious hours, she allowed herself to forget about the threats hanging over them. She was going to be a mother again. This time she would do everything in her power to protect her child. The peace shattered that evening. Jake rode in just after sunset, his horse nearly collapsing from exhaustion. "Boss." He stumbled off the animal. "They burned the north barn, Morrison and 3 other men. I saw them riding away." Colton went white. "Anyone hurt?" "Reynolds got caught inside. We pulled him out, but—" Jake's voice broke. "He's burned bad, boss. Real bad." Maria's hand flew to her mouth. "Where is he?" "Bunkhouse. Martha's doing what she can." Colton was already moving. Maria followed, her heart pounding. Reynolds lay on a narrow cot, his face twisted in agony. Burns covered his arms and chest, the skin raw and weeping. Martha knelt beside him, applying salve with hands that shook. "How bad?" Colton asked quietly. Martha looked up. Her eyes said everything. "I've sent for the doctor," she said. "But it's going to take hours. And even then—" Reynolds opened his eyes. "Boss." His voice was barely a whisper. Colton crouched beside him. "Don't try to talk. Save your strength." "Morrison." Reynolds grabbed Colton's sleeve. He said to tell you this is just the beginning. Said the next fire will be the main house." Ice flooded Maria's veins. "He threatened the house." Her voice came out strange and thin. Reynolds nodded weakly. "Said he'd wait until the boss was gone. Then he'd come for—" His eyes moved to Maria. "He'd come for her." Colton's face transformed into something Maria had never seen before. Pure murderous rage. "I'm going to kill him." "Colton?" "No." He stood abruptly. "He's threatened my wife, my child. He's burned my property and hurt my people. This ends now." Maria grabbed his arm. "You can't just ride out there and watch me. And what happens when they arrest you for murder? What happens when Ashford uses it to take the ranch?" Maria's voice rose. "What happens to me and this baby when you're hanging from a rope?" The words hit him like a physical blow. "I can't just do nothing." "You're not doing nothing. You're being smart." Maria forced herself to breathe. "We need to report this to the sheriff. Build a case. Get Morrison arrested legally so Ashford can't use it against us." "The sheriff's useless. Everyone knows he's in Ashford's pocket." "Then we go over his head. To the territorial marshal." Maria's mind raced. There has to be someone who can't be bought. Someone who will actually enforce the law. Colton stared at her. The rage was still there, burning in his eyes, but something else was fighting it now. Reason. Logic. The knowledge that she was right. "Marshal Thompson," Jake said from the doorway. "He's out of Cheyenne. I've heard he's honest. Takes bribes from nobody." "How far is Cheyenne?" 2 days' ride. 3 if the weather turns." Colton looked at Maria. "I'd have to leave you alone." "I won't be alone. Martha's here. Jake and the men." "It's not enough. Morrison knows this ranch, knows how to get in without being seen. Then we'll be careful." Maria took his face in her hands. "This is the right move, Colton. Getting the law on our side is the only way we win this for good." He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the rage had cooled into something harder, more determined. "I'll leave at first light. Jake, you're in charge while I'm gone. No one gets on this property without being challenged. No one." "Yes, sir." "And Maria." Colton gripped her hands. "You stay in the house. You don't go anywhere alone, not even to the outhouse. Promise me." "I promise." He kissed her hard, like he was afraid it might be the last time. "I'll be back in 5 days. 6 at most." Maria nodded, ignoring the terror clawing at her chest. "I'll be here." The first day without Colton felt endless. Maria tried to keep busy mending clothes, helping Martha in the kitchen, reviewing the account books. But her mind kept wandering to dark places. What if Morrison attacked before Colton returned? What if something happened on the road? What if she never saw him again? "You're gonna wear a hole in that floor," Martha said, watching Maria pace. "Sit down and have some tea." "I can't sit. I can't think. I keep imagining—" "Stop!" Martha's voice was firm. "Imagining disaster don't prevent it. Just steals your peace early." Maria sank into a chair. Her hand went automatically to her belly. "I'm scared, Martha." "I know, honey. Not just for me, for the baby, for Colton, for all of us." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was done being scared. I thought I'd already lost everything there was to lose. But now you got something to lose again." Martha sat beside her. "That's the price of love, girl. The more you have, the more you got to fear. How do you bear it? One day at a time, one breath at a time." Martha squeezed her hand. "The good Lord didn't promise us easy. He just promised he'd be there when it got hard." That night, Maria slept with a rifle beside the bed. She'd never fired a gun in her life. But if Morrison came, she would learn fast. The second day brought trouble. Maria was in the kitchen when she heard shouting from the yard. She ran to the window and saw Jake confronting a man on horseback. Victor Ashford. Her blood ran cold. She grabbed the rifle and stepped onto the porch. "Mrs. Hayes." Ashford tipped his hat, smiling that oily smile. "I heard your husband rode out. Thought I'd pay a friendly visit." "There's nothing friendly about you." "Now that's harsh. I'm simply a businessman looking to make a fair deal." "You sent Morrison to burn our barn. One of our men nearly died." Something flickered behind Ashford's eyes. "I don't know anything about that. Morrison's a troubled man. Acts on his own impulses." "Liar." Ashford's smile faded. "Careful, Mrs. Hayes. Women in your condition shouldn't excite themselves." Maria's hand tightened on the rifle. "How do you know about my condition?" "Small town. Word travels." He leaned forward in his saddle. "Must be terrifying carrying a child when there's so much uncertainty around you. Fires breaking out, threats being made, husband gone off who knows where. Get to the point. The point is, I'm offering you a way out, a safe way." Ashford pulled a document from his coat. "This is a deed of sale. Sign it and I'll give you $10,000. Enough to start over somewhere safe. Somewhere nobody wants to hurt you." $10,000. Double his previous offer. Maria's hands trembled. Not from temptation, from fury. "You really think I'd betray my husband while he's away? I think you're a practical woman. You married him for survival, didn't you? This is just another survival decision. You don't know anything about why I married him?" Ashford studied her. "Maybe not, but I know desperation when I see it. And I know that baby inside you deserves better than a life spent looking over its shoulder." My baby will have a father who loves it, and a mother who won't sell her soul. Maria raised the rifle. Now get off my land before I put a hole in you. For a moment, something dangerous flashed in Ashford's eyes. Then his smile returned. You've got spirit, Mrs. Hayes. I'll give you that. But spirit won't stop what's coming. He tucked the document away. I'll give you 1 week to reconsider. After that, the offer's off the table, and things will get difficult. He rode away slowly, deliberately, like he had all the time in the world. Maria stood on the porch until he disappeared over the ridge. Then her knees gave out. Jake caught her before she hit the ground. Mrs. Hayes, you all right? Get me inside, she gasped. Please. He helped her to a chair. Martha came running with water and a cool cloth. What happened? What did he say? Maria told them, every word. When she finished, Martha's face was pale. $10,000, Lord have mercy. It's blood money. Maria's voice shook. Built on threats and violence. I know that. But Maria... Martha hesitated. Maybe you should think about it. What? Not taking the deal, just leaving. Taking some money from the house accounts and going somewhere safe until Colton gets back. Absolutely not. Maria. This is my home. Maria stood gripping the table for support. I will not be driven out by threats. Not by Ashford, not by Morrison, not by anyone. Even if it cost you the baby. The question hung in the air like a blade. Maria's hand went to her belly. The life growing inside her so fragile, so precious. She would die to protect it. But staying here with danger circling closer every day. I won't run, she said quietly. I'm done running. Whatever comes, I'll face it here. Martha and Jake exchanged a look, but neither argued further. The third day brought the storm. It came howling out of the north without warning, turning the world into a white blur of wind and ice. Within hours, the ranch was buried. The hands couldn't reach the bunkhouse. Communication with the outlying buildings became impossible. Maria stood at the window watching the snow pile higher and higher. Colton's out there somewhere, she whispered. He's smart, Martha said. He'll have found shelter. What if he didn't? What if... A crash from outside cut her off. Jake burst through the kitchen door covered in snow, his face wild with fear. Someone's trying to break into the barn. I saw a lantern moving. Maria's blood froze. Morrison. Has to be. No one else would be crazy enough to be out in this. What do we do? Jake grabbed his rifle. I'm going out there. You can't. You'll freeze before you get halfway. If he gets the horses, we're trapped here. No way to ride for help. No way to escape. Maria's mind raced. Jake was right. Morrison wasn't crazy. He was strategic. If he took their horses, they'd be completely helpless. I'm coming with you. The hell you are! Martha grabbed her arm. You're carrying a child. I can shoot a rifle as well as anyone now. Colton taught me. Maria. If we lose those horses, we lose everything. I'm not sitting here while Jake fights alone. Something shifted in Jake's expression. Respect maybe, or resignation. Stay behind me. Don't take any risks. If things go bad, you run back to the house. Agreed. They pushed out into the storm. The cold hit Maria like a fist. Within seconds, she couldn't feel her face. Snow blinded her, filling her eyes and mouth. She held onto Jake's coat and forced her legs to move. The barn emerged from the white chaos like a ghost. A flicker of lantern light moved inside. Jake raised his rifle. Maria pressed against the wall beside the door. On 3, Jake whispered. 1, 2. The door burst open. Morrison stood there, lantern in one hand, gun in the other. His eyes widened when he saw Maria. Well, came to say hello. Mrs. Hayes. Jake's rifle came up. Drop the gun, Morrison. I don't think so. Morrison's weapon swung toward Maria's belly. One move and I put a bullet right through that baby. Maria couldn't breathe. You're insane, Jake said. Maybe, But I'm also the one holding all the cards. Morrison stepped closer. Drop your rifle, nice and slow. Jake hesitated. His eyes met Maria's. Do it, she whispered. The rifle hit the ground. Good boy, Morrison smiled. Now, Mrs. Hayes, you're going to come with me. We're going to take a nice ride to see Mr. Ashford. He's got some papers for you to sign. In this storm, we'll die before we get a mile. Then we wait it out, together. His smile widened. Won't that be cozy? Maria's mind raced. She needed time, needed to think. Fine, she said. I'll go with you, just don't hurt anyone. Maria, no. Jake started. Shut up. Morrison waved his gun. Get in the barn, both of you. We're going to wait out this storm, and then Mrs. Hayes and I are going on a little trip. They moved into the barn. Morrison kicked the door shut behind them. The cold was brutal even inside. Maria's teeth chattered. Her fingers were going numb. Sit down, Morrison ordered. Over there by the stall. They sat. Jake's hands were clenched into fists, his jaw tight with helpless fury. Morrison settled onto a hay bale across from them, his gun never wavering. You know, he said conversationally. I've been waiting a long time for this. 6 years I've watched Colton Hayes lord over this land like he owns the world. 6 years I've remembered what he took from me. Elizabeth chose him, Maria said quietly. That wasn't Colton's fault. Morrison's face twisted. She didn't choose him. She was tricked, deceived by his money and his land. If she'd seen the real Colton Hayes, the cold, heartless bastard he really is, she'd have come to me. You're delusional. Am I? Morrison leaned forward. I loved her, really loved her, and he let her die. Childbirth killed her, not Colton. The stress killed her. The stress of being married to a man who cared more about his ranch than his wife. Morrison's voice shook. I was there that night. I came to rescue her, to take her away. And he threw me out like garbage. 2 hours later she was in labor, 2 months early. Maria stared at him. Something almost like pity stirred in her chest. You really believe that, don't you? That it was his fault? I know it was. Then you know nothing. Maria's voice hardened. I've seen how Colton mourns her. He blames himself every single day, carries that guilt like a stone around his neck. He loved her, Morrison. Maybe not the way you wanted him to, but he loved her. You're wrong. Am I? Then why are you really here? Is this about Elizabeth, or is this about the money Ashford's paying you? Morrison flinched. Maria pressed harder. How much is he giving you? Enough to make kidnapping a pregnant woman worth it. Enough to wash the blood off your hands. Shut up. You're not a crusader for lost love. You're a hired thug. Elizabeth would be ashamed of you. Morrison's gun swung toward her face. I said shut up. Maria didn't flinch. Go ahead. Shoot me. Ashford won't pay you a cent for a corpse. The moment stretched. Morrison's hand trembled. Then slowly the gun lowered. You've got a mouth on you, he said quietly. I can see why Colton likes you. Let us go, Morrison. This doesn't end well for you. You know that. Can't do that. I'm in too deep. He sighed. Ashford owns me now, same as he wants to own this ranch. There's no walking away. There's always a choice. Not for men like me. The storm raged on. Hours passed. Maria's body ached from the cold, her belly cramped, and for a terrifying moment, she thought something was wrong with the baby. Please, she gasped. I need to lie down. The cold is, I think I'm going to be sick. Morrison studied her suspiciously, then nodded toward a pile of horse blankets. Over there. Don't try anything. Maria crawled to the blankets and wrapped herself in them. The cramping eased slightly, but fear still gnawed at her. Please, she prayed silently. Please let my baby be okay. Sometime in the long hours of the night, Morrison fell asleep. Jake caught Maria's eye. He pointed to the gun in Morrison's lap, then to himself. Maria nodded once. Jake moved like a ghost. Slow, silent, every muscle controlled. His hand reached for the weapon. Morrison's eyes snapped open. The gun came up. Jake lunged. The explosion was deafening in the enclosed space. Jake fell back with a cry, clutching his shoulder. "Stupid!" Morrison snarled. "Stupid! Stupid!" Maria grabbed a pitchfork and swung. It caught Morrison across the back. He screamed and spun, and she swung again, catching his wrist. The gun flew from his hand. "Run!" Jake shouted. "Get out!" Maria ran. She burst through the barn door into the storm. The cold hit her like a wall, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Behind her, she heard Morrison roaring her name. She ran blindly through the white chaos, her lungs burning, her legs screaming. The house had to be close. Had to be. She slammed into something solid and screamed. "Maria!" Familiar voice. Familiar hands gripping her shoulders. "Colton." "You came back," she sobbed. "You came back." "Where is he? Where's Morrison?" "The barn. Jake's hurt." Colton was already moving. Maria followed, stumbling through the snow. They found Morrison trying to crawl toward his gun. Colton reached him first, driving his boot into the man's ribs. "You threatened my wife," Colton said, his voice deadly calm. "You threatened my child." "Colton!" Morrison gasped. "Shut up." Colton picked up the gun and pressed it to Morrison's head. "Give me one reason not to pull this trigger." "Colton, don't." Maria touched his arm. "The marshal. You brought the marshal?" "He's at the house. Rode back with me when I told him what was happening." "Then let the law handle this. Please." Maria's voice broke. "Don't become a killer. Not for him." Colton's hand shook. His finger tightened on the trigger. Then slowly he stepped back. "Jake, tie him up. The marshal can deal with him." Maria collapsed against Colton's chest, sobbing with relief. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "It's over." "The baby," she whispered. "I was so scared." "The cold. Let's get you inside. Now." He carried her through the storm back to the warmth and safety of home. The marshal arrested Morrison that night. Ashford was taken into custody the next morning, caught trying to flee town with a saddlebag full of forged documents and stolen deeds. His entire scheme unraveled within days, bribing officials, hiring thugs, threatening landowners. The territorial governor himself got involved. Hayes Ridge was safe. Maria sat by the fire that evening, wrapped in blankets, Colton's arm around her shoulders. The storm had finally broken. Through the window, stars were emerging for the first time in days. "The marshal says Ashford will hang," Colton said quietly. "Morrison's going to prison." Maria nodded. She should have felt triumph, relief. Instead, she just felt tired. "I almost lost you," Colton whispered. "When I rode up and saw you running through that storm. But you didn't. I'm here. The baby's here." His hand went to her belly. "Does it hurt? Should we send for the doctor?" "Martha checked me. Everything's fine." Maria smiled. "We're strong, this little one and I." Colton pressed his lips to her forehead. "I love you," he said. "I should have said it more. I should have. You showed me. Every day. That's worth more than words." They sat together as the fire crackled, as the world outside grew quiet and still. Tomorrow, there would be work to do. Repairs to make. A ranch to rebuild. But tonight, there was only this two people who had found each other in the darkness, holding on to the light they'd created together. The months that followed were the most peaceful Maria had ever known. Spring crept over Hayes Ridge, slowly melting the snow in patient waves, turning the frozen ground soft and ready for new life. The ranch recovered from the storm damage. The barn was rebuilt stronger than before. Jake's shoulder healed, leaving a scar he wore with quiet pride. And Maria's belly grew. She felt the first kick on a morning in late April, standing at the kitchen window while Martha kneaded bread. The flutter was so faint she almost missed it, a tiny movement like butterfly wings against her insides. "Oh," she breathed. Her hand flew to her stomach. Martha looked up. "What is it?" Something wrong? No. No. I... Maria's eyes filled with tears. The baby kicked. Just now. Martha dropped the dough and crossed the room. Her flour-covered hands pressed gently against Maria's belly. Well, come on then, little one. Say hello to your Aunt Martha. They waited. Nothing. Then a tiny thump. Martha gasped. Lord have mercy. Strong as a horse, this one. Maria laughed through her tears. Colton needs to feel this. Where is he? South pasture. Want me to send Jake? No. I'll go myself. She found Colton mending a fence, his sleeves rolled up despite the cool air. When he saw her coming across the field, he dropped his tools immediately. Maria. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She grabbed his hand and pressed it to her belly. Wait. Colton frowned. Wait for what? The baby kicked. His face transformed. Every hard line softened. His eyes went wide, then wet. That's... His voice cracked. That's our baby. That's our baby. He fell to his knees in the grass, pressing his ear to her belly, like he could hear the child's heartbeat through her skin. Hello in there, he whispered. I'm your pa. I know you can't understand me yet, but I want you to know something. You're already loved. More than you'll ever know. Maria ran her fingers through his hair, tears streaming down her face. This was what healing felt like. The summer brought new challenges. The ranch thrived too well almost. Cattle prices rose. Land values increased. Word spread that Hayes Ridge was prospering again, and suddenly everyone wanted a piece of it. We've had 3 offers this week, Colton said one evening, tossing a stack of letters onto the table. All from railroad interests. Different companies, but same idea. They want to buy us out. Maria picked up one of the letters. These numbers are significant. I know. We could sell. Take the money and start over somewhere easier. Colton looked at her sharply. Is that what you want? Maria met his eyes. I'm asking what you want. I want to stay. His jaw tightened. This land is everything I've built, everything Elizabeth died for. I can't just walk away. Then we don't walk away. He studied her. You'd stay even with an easier option. Colton. Maria set down the letter and took his hands. I didn't marry you for easy. I married you for home. This is home. I'm not leaving. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her swollen belly. What did I do to deserve you? You survived, she said simply. Same as me. August brought the heat and the fear. Maria was 8 months along now, her belly enormous, her back aching constantly. She couldn't sleep more than a few hours at a time. Every cramp sent terror shooting through her. It's too early, she whispered one night, clutching Colton's hand. The baby can't come yet. The doctor said everything looks normal. He said Elizabeth looked normal too, right up until... She couldn't finish. Colton was quiet for a long moment. Then he shifted, pulling her closer, despite the awkwardness of her size. I've been thinking about that, he said carefully. About Elizabeth. About what happened. You don't have to. I do. He took a breath. For 6 years I blamed myself. Thought if I'd been different, done something different, she'd still be alive. But talking to you, watching you carry this baby... He paused. I'm starting to understand that some things just happen, not because anyone deserves them, not because anyone failed. They just happen. Maria's throat tightened. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, but it makes it easier to breathe. He kissed her forehead. I can't promise nothing will go wrong, but I can promise I'll be there whatever happens. You won't face it alone. I know. And Maria, yes. I love you. Not because of any deal, not because of the baby, just because you're you. She pressed her face into his chest and let herself believe it. The pain started on a September morning. Maria woke with a gasp, a sharp cramp radiating through her lower back. She lay still, counting her breaths, telling herself it was nothing. Then another cramp came. Stronger. Colton? He was awake instantly. What is it? I think it's time. Everything after that happened in a blur of fear and chaos. Martha took charge, her calm voice cutting through the panic. Jake rode for the doctor. Colton paced like a caged animal, his face white as bone. You should go, Martha told him. Wait in the other room. I'm not leaving her. Colton. I said no. He grabbed Maria's hand and held tight. I wasn't there when Elizabeth died. I was in the barn fixing a damn fence while she bled to death upstairs. I won't make that mistake again. Martha looked at Maria. Maria nodded. Let him stay. The labor was brutal. Hours passed. The pain grew worse, waves of agony that crashed over Maria until she couldn't tell where one ended and the next began. She screamed into pillows. She begged for it to stop. She prayed prayers she didn't know she remembered. Colton never let go of her hand. You're doing so well, he murmured. So strong. Just a little longer. I can't. Maria's voice was raw. Colton, I can't. Yes, you can. Look at me. He cupped her face. You survived a fire that took everything. You walked 200 miles with nothing. You stood down Morrison with a pitchfork while carrying our child. You can do this. Maria sobbed, but she kept pushing. The doctor arrived just before sunset, breathless from the hard ride. How long has she been laboring? Since this morning, Martha said. 8 hours, maybe 9. The doctor examined Maria quickly. His face was grim. The baby's turned wrong. Breech position. Maria's blood ran cold. What does that mean? It means this is going to be difficult. The doctor rolled up his sleeves. Mrs. Hayes, I need you to listen to me very carefully. When I tell you to push, you push with everything you have. When I tell you to stop, you stop immediately. Can you do that? Yes. Mr. Hayes, hold her steady. This is going to hurt. The next hour was the longest of Maria's life. The pain was indescribable, a tearing, burning agony that made everything before seem like nothing. She screamed until her voice gave out. She gripped Colton's hand so hard she felt bones shift. And through it all, she heard Thomas's voice in her head. Mama, it's okay. Mama, you can do this. Push, the doctor shouted. Now, Mrs. Hayes, one more time. Maria gathered every last shred of strength and pushed. The world went white, and then a cry. High and thin and furious, the most beautiful sound Maria had ever heard. It's a girl, the doctor said. A healthy baby girl. Maria collapsed back against the pillows, sobbing with relief. Let me see her. Please let me. They placed the baby on her chest, a tiny red screaming bundle with a shock of dark hair and her father's stubborn chin. Maria looked down at her daughter and felt something break open inside her, a door she'd thought was sealed forever, flooding with light. Hello, she whispered. Hello, my sweet girl. Colton was crying. Maria had never seen him cry. Not like this. Tears streamed down his weathered face, and he made no move to wipe them away. She's perfect, he choked out. Maria, she's perfect. She is. Can I? He reached out, his big hands trembling. Can I hold her? Maria transferred the tiny bundle into his arms. Colton held her like she was made of spun glass, his eyes never leaving her face. Grace, he said softly. Her name is Grace. Maria's heart clenched. Elizabeth's name. The daughter Colton had lost before she ever had a chance to live. Grace, she agreed. It's perfect. Martha stood in the doorway, tears on her cheeks. Well, she said, her voice thick. Looks like Hayes Ridge has an heir after all. Colton looked up. No. Martha frowned. No, she's not an heir. She's not a deal or a contract or a piece of property. He looked at Maria, then back at the baby in his arms. She's my daughter. That's all. That's everything. Maria reached out and took his free hand. Our daughter, she corrected. He smiled a real smile, the kind she'd only seen glimpses of before. Our daughter. The first weeks with Grace were exhausting and wonderful. Maria barely slept. The baby demanded feeding every few hours, and between the crying and the changing, and the endless worry, there was hardly time to breathe. But she'd never been happier. She found herself staring at Grace for hours, memorizing every tiny feature, every small sound. The way her nose wrinkled when she was about to cry. The way her fingers curled around Maria's thumb. The way she settled immediately when Colton sang to her in his low, rough voice. You're good at this, Maria said one night, watching him rock Grace by the fire. I'm terrified, he admitted, every second of every day. That's how you know you're doing it right. He looked up at her. How do you figure? Because it means you care. You care so much that the thought of failing her keeps you up at night. Maria moved to sit beside him. That's what love is. Not the easy parts. The terrifying parts you face anyway. Colton was quiet for a moment. Then he shifted Grace to one arm and pulled Maria close with the other. I never thought I'd have this again, he said softly. A family. A home that feels like home. I'd given up. So had I. What changed? Maria thought about it. You. This place. The chance to be more than just surviving. She touched Grace's cheek. The chance to actually live. The autumn brought closure. Word came from Cheyenne that Victor Ashford had been hanged for his crimes, not just against Hayes Ridge, but against dozens of families he'd terrorized over the years. Morrison was serving 20 years in territorial prison. The railroad company had pulled out of the region entirely, their reputation too damaged to recover. It's really over, Maria said, reading the newspaper article aloud. Took long enough. Colton stood behind her, his hands on her shoulders. But yeah, it's over. How do you feel? He considered the question. Lighter. Like I've been carrying a weight I didn't know was there, and someone finally took it off. I know exactly what you mean. That night, they sat on the porch together, Grace sleeping peacefully in Maria's arms. I want to tell you something, Colton said. Something I should have said a long time ago. Maria looked at him. What is it? The deal we made, when you first came here. He took her hand. I want to end it. Her heart stuttered. End it? There's no deal anymore. No conditions. No expectations. His eyes held hers steady. You're my wife because I love you. Grace is my daughter because she's mine, not because of any contract, not because of the ranch or the railroad or any of it. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Colton, let me finish. He squeezed her hand. I was a broken man when you came here. I'd given up on everything except work and survival. You could have taken Ashford's money and left. You could have run 100 times. But you stayed. You fought. You loved me when I didn't know how to love myself. You would have done the same for me. Maybe. But you did it first. He lifted her hand to his lips. I don't have fancy words. Never have. But I need you to know that you're not just someone who gave me an heir. You're the one who gave me back my life. Maria leaned forward and kissed him soft and slow and full of everything she couldn't put into words. I love you, Colton Hayes. I love you too, Maria Hayes. More than I ever knew I could. Grace stirred in Maria's arms and let out a small cry. And I love you, little one. Colton added, brushing his finger across the baby's cheek. Don't think I forgot about you. They sat there together as the stars emerged, a family built from grief and hope, and the stubborn refusal to stop fighting. The years passed like water over stone, slowly shaping something beautiful. Grace grew strong and curious with her father's stubbornness and her mother's fire. She learned to walk between fence posts, learned to ride before she could read, learned to love the land that had almost been lost. Maria found a peace she'd thought was gone forever. The sharp edges of her grief softened, becoming something she could carry, instead of something that carried her. Thomas lived on in her heart, but the pain no longer consumed her. She could remember him now, his laugh, his curiosity, his endless questions, and smile instead of weep. Colton changed too. The hardness around him melted away, replaced by a warmth that surprised everyone who'd known him before. He laughed more, worked less, spent hours playing with Grace in the yard, teaching her the names of every animal, every plant, every star in the sky. "You're different," Jake said one morning, watching Colton carry Grace on his shoulders across the pasture. "Different how?" "Happy. Never thought I'd see the day." Colton smiled. "Neither did I." On Grace's second birthday, they held a celebration at the ranch. Families came from miles around, the same people who'd once watched Maria with suspicious eyes, who'd whispered about the stranger from back east, who'd married Colton Hayes in a matter of days. Now they brought gifts and laughter and stories about how Hayes Ridge had become the heart of the community. "Look at her," Martha said, watching Grace toddle through the crowd, accepting attention like a tiny queen. "Spitting image of her daddy." "She's got her mother's spirit," Colton countered. Maria shook her head. "She's entirely herself. That's what matters." Later that night, after the guests had gone, and Grace had fallen asleep exhausted from the excitement, Maria and Colton stood together on the porch. 2 years, Maria said softly. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like forever. Do you regret it? Coming here?" "Not for a second." She leaned into him. "This place saved my life. You saved my life. You saved mine first." They stood in comfortable silence, listening to the wind move across the plains. "I've been thinking," Colton said eventually, "about the future." "What about it?" "Grace is going to need a sibling eventually. Someone to share all this with." Maria's heart fluttered. "Is that what you want?" "I want whatever you want, but—" He turned to face her fully. "If there were more children, I wouldn't complain. Even if they're girls. Especially if they're girls." He smiled. "I've learned my lesson about what matters. Blood and gender don't make a family. Love does." Maria reached up and touched his face. "Then maybe we should see what happens." "Maybe we should." He kissed her under the stars, and Maria felt the last of her old wounds close forever. 3 years later, the Hayes family had grown again. Thomas Daniel Hayes was born on a spring morning named for the son Maria had lost, and the husband who'd given her hope. He had his mother's eyes and his father's quiet strength. Grace adored him instantly, hovering over his cradle like a tiny guardian angel. "He's so small," she whispered, her 3-year-old voice full of wonder. "You were that small once," Maria told her. "Was not. Were too." Colton laughed, a sound that still surprised Maria every time she heard it. The hard, silent man she'd married seemed like a distant memory now. "Our family," he said, wrapping his arms around all of them. "Our home." Maria looked at her children, at her husband, at the ranch that spread out around them, thriving and strong. She thought about the woman who'd arrived in Whistling Creek 3 years ago, broken, starving, desperate. A woman who'd lost everything and expected nothing. That woman was gone now. In her place stood someone new, someone stronger, someone who'd learned that love wasn't about perfect circumstances or fairy tale beginnings. Love was about showing up, day after day, choosing each other, choosing the fight. "Mama," Grace tugged at her skirt. "What are you thinking about?" Maria smiled and lifted her daughter into her arms. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am." "Why?" "Because I found you, all of you." Grace frowned with the serious concentration only small children could manage. "But we found you, Mama." Maria laughed. I suppose you did? That evening, Maria sat at the window of the house that had become her home. Grace played on the floor with wooden blocks. Thomas slept peacefully in his cradle. Colton read by the fire, his face soft in the lamplight. Outside, the wind moved across the Dakota plains, the same wind that had greeted her on that first terrible day. But it didn't sound like punishment anymore. It sounded like a promise. Maria Dawson had come to Whistling Creek looking for a place to survive. She'd found something far greater: a husband who loved her, children who needed her, a community that accepted her, a home that would never burn down. She'd found family, not the one she'd been born into, but the one she'd chosen, the one she'd built with her own two hands and her stubborn, battered heart. And that Maria knew was the only legacy that truly mattered. Not land, not blood, not names carved into wood or written in ledgers. Just love given, freely received, gratefully passed down through generations. The wind kept blowing, the fire kept burning, the children kept growing, and Maria Hayes, once a widow with nothing but grief and a worn suitcase, finally understood what it meant to be home.